Hey everybody, this is the Success Estate Podcast. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm your host, real estate agent here at Coldwell Banker, Linhart Properties right here in Longview, Texas for the past 6 years, but I'm serving all of East Texas. Today is going to be beneficial for anybody with any kind of real property ownership. We have, of course, been talking over the last several seasons about home ownership and all the different things that comes along with it, buying, selling, lots of great information. This episode is actually going to take a little bit of a different direction that it's coming from, as the information that you would receive today is good for you now, but it's actually utilized in the future and it's going to help your family. It's kind of an uncomfortable conversation for some people, but it's a necessary conversation for anybody. You will hear from this young lady who is possibly somebody that you really need to know, as you possibly could be calling her mayor pretty soon. She's a wife, mother, estate planner, and attorney, business owner here in Longview, also a former city council, as she called herself, retired city council member of District 4, Miss Kristen Ishihara. I hope you enjoy our conversation. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Johnson. This is the Success Estate Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope today that you find a lot of great information. My goal in all of this is to have an interesting conversation with somebody that can provide something informative and helpful for you. We have a lot to offer here in the Longview and East Texas area, and I just hope to be a bridge to kind of help you find those people. So today I have a wonderful guest, Miss Kristen Ishihara. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Thank you for coming on.
Glad to be here.
Would you mind giving a brief bio, who you are?
Sure. Yeah. I am married. I have 2 children, both 7th graders at Foster Middle School now. My husband, Rich, and I met at Baylor Law School, and we moved out here 17 years ago, I guess.
Okay.
So I've been practicing law here for 17 years, and that's about it.
What brought y'all to Longview?
A job. I graduated before Rich, and I came out here for a job.
Okay. Now, so Rich is an attorney as well?
He is. He no longer practices. He's living his best life selling thermals and night visions. But he worked for Lone Star Legal Aid for the first 7 years we were here.
Okay. Wow. Very interesting. Well, I do have, I guess, one lead-off question. I always like to try to throw a surprise question or something in there, maybe they're not prepared for. I think the people want to know what's going on in your cover photo on Facebook.
My cover, my poor angry daughter. I really actually need to change that. That's unfair.
It's a beautiful picture. It's a beautiful picture, and it's actually very great. You know, I didn't know she was doing it on purpose, or is she? No.
Rich. One thing to know about Rich is he loves doing quality photography and video stuff. So he's a great person to go on vacation with, because he will take family photos and action shots for the other families we're with. So we were taking family photos for everybody we were with. We waited till the last one, and she was mad that she waited, and so that is a very realistic, just angry, pouting face.
That's a part of life. I'm glad y'all captured that real moment. You know,
yes.
That's literally people will be like, "Oh man, y'all have such a great family." You know, we go to places, I'm like, you don't even know. We were fighting in the car on the way over here.
Turns out I can't make her smile.
Yeah,
so,
well, hey, let's just capture the moment. That's really the moment. Let's capture it.
That's true.
Yeah, so I hope that didn't throw you off too much.
No.
So you are involved in a ton of things. Can you talk first about your business?
Oh, sure. Yeah. My law partner and I, Chris Parker, started our own firm in October of last year, 2022. I have been doing estate planning and elder law here in Longview for over 10 years, but we just started our own firm last year.
Gotcha. Awesome. As far as how has that been for you, taking that leap, and kind of what inspired you to do that?
Yeah. Well, I just honestly, I felt it was time just to invest more in Longview as a business owner. I had been working for another firm who had kind of their satellite office here, which was great. It was a great experience. Loved everybody I worked with. Just felt like it was time to go out on my own, buy a building, invest here, and just be a little more present and involved.
And you have a beautiful building.
Thank you.
By the way, you talked about being involved and being invested. I don't know a lot of a lot of people that are more invested than you. So that's kind of surprising to hear you say, but I definitely can understand. You are involved in a lot of things, including my wife's 501c3, Queens United. What other things are you involved in nonprofit wise?
Sure.
Outside of the business?
Yeah. So the boards that I still serve on, I am on the Longview Paws 501c3 that supports the Longview Animal Care and Adoption Center. We started that when they opened 6 years ago now, which is pretty cool. And I am on the Greater Longview Estate Planning Council. That's a group of estate planning professionals that meets quarterly to try and get more information and education and network so we can do a better job for people as they estate plan. And then the other one that I should be working on more than I am is the Longview Community Foundation. That's a new 501c3 that we've formed in the last 2 years, and will serve as a community foundation to help educate nonprofits, support charitable giving, and just be a really, good resource for the community.
That's important. We have it seems like we have a ton of great nonprofits here in the area for people to get involved in. I want to find myself also more, actually one season we're going to devote to only nonprofits.
Yeah. It's crazy. So people could really learn a lot more about everything we have available.
It does seem like the thing that, sometimes we kind of don't want to know about it because, of course, a nonprofit is normally attached to a great purpose. And when you hear about it, then you have to wrestle in yourself with, okay, am I going to be involved in this? Because it is important. Yep. I know it's important, but it's going to be taxing either on my time or on my effort, my energy. But I do think we should be doing more to spread the word about all the nonprofits that people can be involved in here.
Absolutely.
You also have served city council. How long was your term?
Yeah, city council, you can do three-year terms. So I did 9 years serving as a District 4 council representative and retired, I guess, in May of this year.
Gotcha. Yeah. How has that been? How was that experience for you as city council for the last 9 years?
I love being on city council. Or 95% of the time, I love being on city council. Yeah. It's a really great opportunity to get people connected with a solution. So people call you with a problem, and there's a steep learning curve, I will say that. But once you figure out how to help them solve their problem, connecting them to the right person it's pretty awesome. And not everybody... there's not always a solution that they wanted, right? But giving them the opportunity to be heard and really felt like, we looked for a solution together, and if the answer is no, the answer is no. But
at least you gave them the respect to try.
Right.
Yep, got you. Anything in particular that you are proud of in your terms as city council?
Yeah, I would say the comprehensive plan to that. So the comprehensive plan was something that started before I was on council, but then was approved once I was on council, and it is our greatest document that collected information from the public. There were surveys, there were groups, there were online things, in-person things, and it really worked to get information from the citizens on what things we should be working towards, right? Because I think the biggest danger is you elect people up there, and we serve with the best interests of people in mind, but everybody has their silo of people that talk to them.
Exactly.
So you need a way to get information from everybody so you can be sure that we're all moving in the right direction, and
that's
it's not
important.
Yes. So the comprehensive plan is getting a refresh right now.
Okay.
So there will be more public meetings and opportunities for online surveys currently open. So very exciting.
That's another thing that I'm going to have to be looking forward to get involved with. Did you see a growth in involvement over your years as city council, or did people kind of unfortunately not make themselves as aware as they should have about things that were going on in the...
Oh, that's tricky. I don't know how I would answer that. Yeah. I would say that I'm really always encouraged by the amount of people that are just plugging away doing stuff, because you can run into somebody that you've never met before, working hard in the trenches, getting stuff done. And I'm like, how have I not run into you before? Yeah. And so I'm always just encouraged by the spirit of people in Longview to just find a problem, tackle it, do what needs to be done, and, just keep going.
Well, long before we met, I heard your name, in which you were our city council for our area here as well, because I live right up the road here. We don't live but maybe 2 minutes from each other. And now I knew who you were in that regard as far as city council, but I have been hearing rumblings for several years now about your new venture in Kristen Ishihara for mayor of Longview,
yes.
Texas, of Longview, Texas.
Yeah.
How did that start for you? And is that something that you originally aspired for, or just kind of just filling it out?
I would not say that I originally had any political aspirations. How I ended up on city council, I was involved with the animal shelter, and I got on their advisory committee when we were talking about building a new animal shelter in Longview. So like it was an idea, and they formed a task force, and I just really enjoyed serving on there. And when during that time frame, the council person for District 4 was termed out. He'd done his 9 terms.
Okay.
And so David Willard, who was a city manager at the time, kind of put a bug in my ear. Would you consider, serving here?
Yeah.
And okay. I had young kids.
Yeah.
So I have always really, this is off topic, but I've always really tried to make an effort, and I need to do better. But if you put that bug in somebody's ear, it might be not something they were considering, but just, hey, I see this in you. You could do this. I know you have a young family and you got a lot going on. You have all these things, but
drop that seed
right.
anyways.
You gotta, you gotta seed it and water it and all the things.
Yeah.
But so I enjoyed my city council service. I really did. I think it's a unique opportunity to serve where you are, have an actual impact locally on things that matter. So mayor seemed like a good opportunity to continue to serve that way.
Sure. Yeah. Now you also said that you're wife, mother, business owner.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot to take on. I've only seen. I think I looked back and I only saw one other female mayor of Longview.
Oh, I would be the third.
You would be the third. Okay. Now I couldn't, because a lot of them are abbreviated. Like if you look at the list, as it's like their initials and then their last name. I was like, okay, I can't tell who this is.
Martha Whitehead and Lois Jackson. That would be
Lois Jackson. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All of that's kind of weighty. I know that takes a lot of your time and effort and things like that. How do you? I mean, I'm sure it's already a juggle now with being city council and everything. How do you manage to do all of those things and do them well? Because I will say, let me add one. I see your family from a distance and very small doses. I saw things up close, and I was like, okay, y'all seem to manage and run very well. That I tell people all the time, don't look at my life and think like everything is great all the time, of course. But y'all seem to do an amazing job together, you and Richard. How are you able to manage all of it?
Yeah, well, thank you. That's kind of you to say. I think that something I realized sometime in the last 10 years was just that you have to place a priority on your own spiritual health. So at some point in time, I realized that the most important thing that I needed to take care of was my personal relationship with God.
Gotcha.
And so that impacts then your marriage, that impacts your family, that helps you prioritize in a way that you keep the first thing first.
Yeah.
And so that's really what has worked for me.
And I would say like at the same with that, like it helped me to create boundaries.
Absolutely.
Like some things were just off the table automatically because it didn't align with my faith or my spiritual growth, and which then affected, of course, my familial health or even myself. Just want to take care of myself to be my best for my family. Marriage is not easy, for anybody. You kind of get this dream of marriage and what it's going to be like. You come in with these expectations with a person. You have an expectation in your mind. You've probably built this person up in your mind, and then this person that you're living with is completely different. So all those things, it kind of helped me to start to, like I said, create boundaries with people, because of course people, just desire your time and your effort and your energy. Your time is now your most valuable resource.
Yes. You always have to remember that. And I schedule time now, like actually on my calendar, schedule time for my devotional, for my prayer, for my family, right? And it's seasonal. So now I protect the time that I have with my family Whereas when I was a younger person, I was signing up for everything, put me on everything.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, nope, does it happen on a Monday night? No, that's the time that I spend with my family.
Got you.
So I have learned to say no is very important, but I want to be great at the things I'm involved in and not just involved in everything anymore.
Yeah. And I guess at some point you actually realize like it's probably better if you're not involved in everything, because then you can, devote more of your time and effort, functional time and effort. Because I have been places I'm like, I'm not really here.
Right. Yes.
Like,
I am at this meeting, but I am not listening to what you're saying.
As far as, so you've been here for how many years?
17.
17 years. What are some things that draw you to Longview?
Longview's people are just so great.
Yeah.
They are so great.
Yeah.
I, moving to a place as a young single person, it is really kind of hard to make friends, right? I was working up in Dangerfield at the time, so I was driving 45 minutes each way.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah, but everybody in Longview, man, they're nice and they're so friendly, and it was easy to fit in and find things to do. And if you were willing to work, there was a place for you to be.
Sure.
Rich and I started volunteering as soon as we got here, and things like Special Olympics and other things. So we met people just by getting involved, and it's the people have been such a blessing to our family.
What are some of the things, this is kind of a personal question, what are some of the things that y'all like to do as a family here? Is there anything that particularly sticks out to you?
Yeah, really mostly outdoor activities.
Yeah, that's kind of what we have.
Yeah, we use the trails, we use the parks, we go to the close state parks. We just walk around our neighborhood now. So just being outside with my family.
I would say that those trails have been a humongous blessing, especially where I live now. I can walk to Guthrie Park, get on the trail. We can drive 2 minutes down the road and get to Lois Jackson. That park. All these different parks are now connected with. Now, did you have a part in approving those plans as well?
So the trail system, that master plan pre-existed me.
Okay,
now I would say that I
Really?
played a supporting role in helping to get the trails completed and connected. But that plan, so that's why sometimes people complain about creating those master plans and spending money to get those things in place. But man, they're so important, because if you don't have them, you don't have a plan. But before my time, there was a plan to connect all those trails.
Whoa.
It just took that long to get the funding in place, and now they've completed them.
Wow.
I've learned some patience. Like coming on to city council, I thought, we can get all this done immediately, and it's just not how it works.
That is, as far as like political expectations as a citizen, that is one place where I try to give some grace. It's just like, it's hard to imagine, okay, hey, I have an idea. Now, even though I'm pitching this idea, this is maybe a reason why you vote me in, I still have to go and work with several other people. Every government system that we have has checks and balances. So you're not just, there's no authoritarians around, so you're not just going to go in and just make things happen like that. But you do, of course, I imagine that you have some expectations of things that you're going to do if the citizens elect you as mayor. What are there anything in particular that you like to share that you have hopes and aspirations for as a mayor?
Yeah, I actually would tell you that I just would like to continue steering the ship in the right direction.
Gotcha.
So refreshing the comprehensive plan, getting public input on where we should go. I do not have one thing that I hope to accomplish while I'm there. I just hope to serve with integrity and professionalism and make sure that we always continue to move Longview in the way that its citizens want to move.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, and I won't. This isn't a political interview as well, but I do think I don't think that I have many opportunities to interview a potential mayor candidate. So I greatly appreciate you talking a little bit about that. But my main desire to have you on was to talk about estate planning, because it is something that is critical, something I'm learning more and more about. Of course, I'm on the front end a lot and trying to help people find an estate. And I know estate doesn't necessarily mean a physical property, but as far as trying to find real estate, I'm on the front end of it. And as I kind of looked past, and now that I'm involved, I'll see situations. I have land listed right now that's undivided interest. And then it's like simultaneously my family had an issue with undivided interest. So all those things I started recognizing, like, oh, wait a minute, there's another layer to this.
Yeah.
I can help you sell a house, help you buy a house, but now there's keeping this and it doing whatever you want it to do once you're not the owner anymore.
Right.
For one, can you tell us what estate planning is and why it's important?
Sure. So estate planning is preparing for the event of your death, which will obviously happen, and also for the potential event of your incapacity, who would manage stuff. So a good estate plan should include the following: your last will and testament, which just says this is who gets my stuff when I die.
Gotcha.
Your financial and medical powers of attorney that, if you are alive but incapacitated, appoint somebody, a trusted agent, to handle financial stuff for you, which could mean selling your house if you were, in an assisted living and you needed it sold kind of deal, and make medical decisions for you.
Okay. Well,
your estate plan could be a lot more complicated than that too, but literally every person over 18 years old should have those things in place.
The incapacitated part, maybe I wasn't prepared for that, to hear that, because that is definitely a part of the reality as well, that anything can happen. Of course, death is a part of life. That's can be a super uncomfortable conversation.
Yep.
How do you navigate those conversations when somebody's coming in and of course they need to talk about these things? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, well, they cost counselors as well as attorneys.
That makes sense.
So you do actually have a class
at
law school. Yeah, you do.
Really?
You have a class.
Okay.
You have a class. Yep. And so one of the questions they teach you to ask is, what outcome are you hoping for? Right? So help me understand where you're trying to get.
Yeah.
And that's usually if there's, some sort of conflict. But I have a pretty just scripted, okay, tell me about you. How long have you been married?
Yeah.
Do you have kids?
Yeah.
Do you have grandkids? Does anybody have any health or financial issues that I should know about? Because that would be included in your estate plan. And then tell me, are you working? Are you retired? And then we make a list of assets, which would include all real property, life insurance, investment, bank accounts, all those things.
Sure.
And then we talk about what you want to happen to those.
That is a lot to take in. And I will say, I know a lot of people that just don't want to think about the timely or untimely passing that they're eventually going to come across. What would you say to people that are like, I'm just uncomfortable with this conversation? What's your advice to them?
Sure. I'm not real great at sugarcoating in general. So you're gonna die, and if you die without a will, Texas will write it for you. So you have an opportunity while you're alive to set it up the way you want to set it up. And if you choose not to, it will be set up. It just won't be by you.
So things may happen in a way that you didn't want them to happen.
Yes, and often do.
Yeah. As far as you talked about the living, but I try to go a little bit what you said just a minute ago. You talked about everybody should have a living will.
Last will and testament.
Last will and testament. What process do people need to go through to establish a real last will? Because I have a family member that tried to leave. My grandfather tried to leave something to my uncle, and it didn't work out.
Yeah. There's only two ways to do valid wills in Texas.
Okay.
One is attested, meaning signed by two witnesses when you sign it. So I'm the testator. It's my will. I sign it in the presence of two witnesses who also affix their signatures.
Gotcha.
That's a valid will. You may miss a whole bunch of stuff if you try and do it by yourself. The other option is a holographic will, which just means all in your handwriting, signed and dated by you. A lot of times what people will do is do it either way, handwrite it themselves, type it up, take it to a notary, sign it in front of the notary, get it notarized. That is not a valid will.
Whoa.
Right.
Okay.
People make that mistake a lot. The notary has nothing to do with having a valid will.
So they can't be a witness. Is that what it is? Or they just can't be the only witness?
They can't be the only witness.
Okay.
You need two. So if you had a self-proved affidavit attached to your will, that's where the notary comes into place. So you would sign it, two witnesses would sign it, and then a notary would sign confirming the witnesses and your signature. And that's usually what you do with the lawyer. But sometimes people just get the notary, and then that's no good.
Then you're in. Is that legal some other places? Is that where that information probably comes from?
I have no idea why people think that's valid, except for just notarizing something makes it seem official.
Oh yeah. Now I have heard that. So like I said, that's great news information for me, because that's something that I've literally heard. Hey, just have it notarized.
Take it down to the bank, get it notarized.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as how lengthy of a process is that, as far as getting the last will set up? Is that something that should be something that takes over time, or?
I mean, you can always change it. So clients that come into my office, we usually meet one time. As long as they know what they want, we sign it the next week. So it doesn't take long to prepare documents. Sometimes people need to take homework home and think about things, and that's fine. It's probably more simple than a lot of people think when you think about, like, oh gosh, listing my assets. Who do I want to get what? You can summarize it pretty well. Yeah. So, if I were to guess what your will would say, you'd probably say, if I die first, I leave everything to my spouse. If my spouse is gone before me, I leave everything in equal shares to my kids in trust until a certain age. So people sometimes overthink, well, I want this thing to go to this person, this thing to go to this person, this thing to go to this person. And you can do all of that. Usually you do it on a personal property memo that goes with your will. Because tangible personal property, do not get bogged down in trying to put that in your will. Stick that on a memo that's separate from your will. And then your will would include real property, cars, other personal property not listed, all those things.
Gotcha. Now, if, let's say, for instance, like somebody bought a house 5 years ago, of course they have a mortgage and things like that, so they're not the sole owner of the property. Right. Let's say they're married.
Okay. They buy the house while married?
They bought the house while married. Okay. Do the laws of like their tenant being joint tenants in common, does that take precedence over the will?
It does not.
Really?
Yep. So do you want to give them some kids, or you want to make that how do you want to make that hypothetical?
Let's do that with kids. Okay. Let's do that with kids.
All right. So hypothetical one, Anna and Bob are married. They have 2 kids. They were born of their marriage. If they bought that house while married, it's community property. Right. Then when Bob dies, Anna would own it without a will. Texas law would give it to her.
Right.
Let's say now Bob and Anna, Bob had a kid before marriage. They got married. Now they have 2 kids together.
This is getting juicy.
Yep. Bob dies. His half goes to his 3 kids, not to Anna. So Texas law, the community property, I think sometimes makes people think that they will get it, and they don't always. So if you have a child outside of marriage from either spouse, it's very important to have your estate plan. And then the same thing is true if it's separate property. So like, for example, when I moved out here, Rich and I were not married, I bought a house. Okay. That house is my separate property because I owned it before marriage. So if I died, that house would go to my kids, not my spouse.
Wow.
Without a will. Wow. You have to have a valid will, and you have to probate it.
That is very interesting. Probate. Can you explain what that is? What is probate? Because we hear that a lot.
Yes.
Can you explain what probate is?
Yes. Probate in Texas requires that you hire a lawyer. So I have to, have a valid will. And then when I die, my executor hires an attorney. That attorney probates my will, which means enters it into the county court at law where I was living at the time of death. So in Gregg County, you go to County Court at Law number 2 is our probate court, and the court says, yep, that's a valid will. Yep, you're the executor. And you get a court order, and you get letters testamentary, and then you are able to sell a house, collect bank accounts, sell cars, do all the stuff you need to do.
Gotcha. The executor is set up in the will?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. This is very interesting. Because of course, like I hear these kind of terms all the time, and I don't have time to explore them always.
Sure.
Now there are some things, of course, that I've become more aware of, things like probate, because the opposite of probate is intestate, right?
Yep.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So if we used Bob from the second example, and he didn't have a will.
Bob was getting around.
Yeah.
Come on, Bob.
Well, I mean, Bob dies intestate, no will. Then his property goes to his kids, then in equal shares. So those kids, let's hope that they're all adults, then they can do disinterested witness affidavits. They can come sign if they're going to sell property. Then the 3 of them can do it. It gets way more complicated if Bob's, son from a prior marriage is estranged, they don't have contact, or if those kids are minors. Now I can't sell the property, so it can become a lot more complicated with other factors.
So, of course, y'all, all that Kristen is saying right now is you need your will in place.
You need to have a will in place. That's
You're
exactly
18
right.
or above. That's what you said a minute ago.
That's what I said.
You're 18 or above. You need to have a will in place. You could probably resolve a lot of headache for your family. And it's so funny because, we do, I I have a plan to buy several homes to leave to my children, and it is to make their future better. This is probably one of the main things that you can do to make your family's future better.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of people splinter, a lot of families splinter, right, as somebody that's basically holding the whole family together.
Yep.
Do you have any examples of anything like that where people have kind of, maybe, I know you're kind of an outside party, but of course you probably, as the counselor, you're probably hearing a lot of those things.
Yeah. I mean, what gets tricky? So let's say that, mom and dad live in a home, dad passes away, mom continues living there, maybe adult child comes to help care for her, is living in the house. Mom dies with no will. There's 4 kids total. So that house is now owned by all 4 kids, right? But if they want to treat it as the family house, they want to keep it, somebody has to pay the property taxes, somebody has to pay the insurance, somebody has to pay all the utilities. And so what a common misconception by kids is often, well, I've been living in that house paying all the bills for 10 years. It's mine. No, it's not. You have to look for the chain of title who owned it last. And when they died, how many kids did they have? Because that's how many undivided interest owners there are.
Got you.
And that's what becomes hard because kid 3 wants to sell the house. They want their part of the money. Kid 1, cared for mom for 10 years. Is it fair to kick him out? Well, not really morally, but legally, So those are the hard ones.
Yikes. When in the term undivided interest, from my understanding, that just means so that the real property is the interest. And even though let's say if there's 4, everybody has 25%, we don't know which 25% of this interest is yours. Is that what makes it
That's exactly
undivided?
right.
Okay.
That means I have the right as an undivided interest owner to possession of all of it. So that 25% owner that lives there, she has the right to do it. Right. But then the complication comes, okay, well now, if I'm not living there, I'm not giving you money for the property taxes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And it really, in basic terms, that kind of makes sense. Like, hey, I'm not really a part of this, so why would I have to pay? And people are starting to get really tricky. I don't know if y'all are aware that you have the right to sell your undivided interest. And so I was talking about earlier, my family member, we've got some land outside of Henderson, and this person hadn't really been paying on their taxes. There's parts of the family that were doing what they were supposed to, and somebody approached them and said, "Hey, you can sell your interest, and the land stays in the family's name," which I think is very deceptive. But sure enough, he sold his interest, and now somebody that's not a part of the family has the right to the whole property. Because of their interest in it. So that I've probably been on a tear with that. My soapbox probably comes out then, because the more that I read and understand, the more I recognize, oh wow, this is really kind of a dangerous game.
Absolutely.
If you're not prepared for it.
Sure.
Situations that you feel like people are less prepared for when it comes to estate planning. Are there specific examples that you can give other than those that we've talked about that you feel like people should be aware of?
I would just make sure that you have in place agents that you trust to handle things. So the solution, even if you wanted, let's use our family home as an example, even if you wanted the 4 kids to benefit from it, you have to put in place then an executor that could probate the will and then sell the house.
Okay.
Right. So thinking through, okay, what's realistic? Is someone going to live in this house? Because if so, you should probably leave the house just to them, right? And then it's clear that they're responsible for it, and maybe you provide for the others in other ways. But if you want it to be sold and split financially, then that needs to be explained and talked about as well. So just setting expectations, I
Sure.
get. I think communicating with family is really important about what your wishes are. Some people don't want to do it because, 1, they don't like to talk about it, of course.
Sure.
And then 2, maybe you've done something that you don't actually want to tell them until they're gone. That happens, and that's okay. I mean, it is your private information. You don't have to share.
Sure.
But it makes it much harder for the kids that are left dealing with it.
Like, oh man, this was your favorite, I guess. Oh man, she really was your favorite. You left her everything. But no, so there's wills, and you talked also about the power of attorney. power of attorney is just basically somebody that has the right to make decisions for you if you are incapacitated, or I guess that's the only time if you're incapacitated, right? How does a person go about setting up the power of attorney?
Yeah, so you can, of course, use a lawyer for it. You can also find those forms. Texas promulgates forms statutorily, so you could look for a statutory durable power of attorney would be the financial one, and then there's a healthcare power of attorney too.
Oh, okay. Now, I'm vaguely familiar with the healthcare. My wife was a social worker, and she would explain some of those things, and my father-in-law's, untimely passing, and there were things that they needed to set up. Fortunately, my mother-in-law, of course, was coherent and everything. She was perfectly fine to make decisions for them, but you realize, like, very quickly, this could all get, really messy. On the estate planning side, the power of attorney, their role should be just to carry out what's in the will or carry out whatever they think is best.
So they would be acting as your agent. So it's like I hired a personal assistant and they're doing what I told them to do. So your power of attorney agent is supposed to act either at your direction or what they believe your direction would be. Oh. So I'm alive still, but I'm incapacitated. So I can't just do what I think is best. I have to do what I think the person that appointed me would tell me to do or would want me to do.
Well, how will we know that?
Well, hopefully you've had some conversations about it. Sometimes it becomes trickier, right? So I was actually just answering this for a client. Their dad's power of attorney, he is living in a facility now that they're privately paying for, so they want to sell the house to help pay for that care. And they didn't feel like they could say, hey, Dad, it's time to sell the house, right? Because he doesn't have the ability to make the decision now. That would be hard. He probably wouldn't really understand. The durable power of attorney means it continues past your incapacity. So I said, well, if he were in your shoes making a decision 10 years ago, when he had the ability to do it, what do you think he'd say? I think he'd make a reasonable decision, right? So it's obviously in his best interest. They're going to use the money for him, for his care. But even though he's not saying, hey, I'm telling you to sell the house, it's still done at what I would consider to be his direction and his best interest.
Sure. So if I am, I don't know, when should a person decide to set up a power of attorney?
18.
18.
Yep.
Okay.
You should have your spouse as your power of attorney agent now.
Got you. And in doing so, you should start having a conversation with that person about your desires.
Right.
Got you.
Just letting you think about that. If something happened to you, at least you would know what you wanted, right? She could carry that out in the spirit of what you were thinking about. My kids are not old enough, nor yours, to be listed as backups, but eventually adult children will be listed as your backups. Hopefully all turns out well with the kids,
Right.
So now it's my parents, I think, and my brother. But they're, people you trust to know you well enough, hopefully, to make an educated guess about what you would want. And
if we move, so I hear, well, I see, somebody selling a home, and it is it's in a trust. Can you give some explanation, some understanding on what a trust is?
Yeah, there's different levels of, complication of an estate plan, and a trust is not necessarily complicated, but so at a bare minimum, everybody should have a will and powers of attorney. Then typically we talk to clients about the alternative of using a family trust. That is an alternative to a will where you basically set up your estate during your lifetime. Okay. So instead of probating at death, I set up a trust now.
I don't know why I breathe a little easier hearing that. Like that, for some reason, that was a relief for me. You just set it up while we're...
Yeah, it's just I'm doing the work now. So what that means is that I've put my house in there, I've put my bank account in there, I've put my investment account in there, I've assigned my personal property in there. So when I die, there's no probate because the terms of the trust control, and that says who my successor trustee is, which would be, your surviving spouse, and then that next line of who your executor would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's really, it's just an alternative to a will.
Sure. Are there any other alternatives outside of that? Or
there are things like ladybird deeds or transfer upon death deeds. Yeah. Those are, so anytime you do an estate plan, you have to be really careful to be comprehensive about it. So let's say that I have a will in place, but then I have a bank account and I before I got married, I had my parents listed as the beneficiaries on it, and I never updated it, which happens when you have like life insurance or 401k through work, because you fill it out when you start. You never think about it again. So let's say I have that on there. My will says I leave everything to my spouse. Well, the joint owner or beneficiary on accounts controls over what my will says. Wow. So no matter which plan you decide to do, you have to make sure and match everything together. So a ladybird deed or transfer upon death deed might be part of somebody's plan if, let's say, I'm a surviving single widow. The only assets I have in the world are my house and my bank account. I can add a beneficiary on my bank account. The ladybird deed would let me add a beneficiary on my house. So maybe I avoid probate that way.
Okay. Now, is it what kind of costs are associated with like getting a ladybird deed?
Yeah, so we flat fee everything. For example, a ladybird deed costs $750. Okay. Plus the filing fee for the deed, which is based on how many pages you got.
Got you. And that's just you. Then you take on the responsibility of like filing it with the.
Yeah, we file it with the county clerk, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, people do kind of misunderstand that. So that the ladybird deed is where the person that owns the house keeps an enhanced life estate. So they still own the house while they're alive. So if they sold the house, they would keep 100% of the money.
Got you.
The Gray County tax appraisal updates it so it looks like the kids own it, but they don't. The deed actually retains the entire interest for the person who did the deed, and it is not until they die their life estate is over, and then it transitions to the kids.
Oh, okay. Well, let's give another scenario. Let's say we're moving like into a business. So let's say somebody owns a business. And do they make that a part of the will as well? I know you talked about real property.
Yep.
Is that considered? Okay.
Yep.
So
if I had an LLC, now the terms of my operating agreement control above anything else, just like a beneficiary to bank. So a good thought out operating agreement for an LLC, I mean, depending upon who the members are. So like, let's say you have an LLC and it's you and your wife. The terms of it are probably not a huge deal. You're going to, in your will, also leave it to her and then to the kids or whatever. But like for me, I have a law firm with a business partner that is not family.
Yeah.
Right. So our operating agreement addresses if I die, what happens? If he dies, what happens? And you can have things like buyout provisions, either mandatory or allowed. So your operating agreement controls over anything else with the business. But then if, let's assume you don't have any provisions, then your will says what happens to the LLC or other entity when you die.
Okay. That seems like a whole, like I had that relief just a second ago. I feel unrelieved now. It's like, that seems like it could start to get tricky. Like talking about provisions and things like that as a part of the, in most cases are like let's say, would you just have your partner just buy out the rest and give to your family, or do they?
Yeah, so like ours personally, we have life insurance that would cover paying the business so that we could be bought out.
Okay.
So that's how we've structured ours. It's a good way to do it usually if you have a business partner that's not family, because he doesn't want to be in business with Rich,
Sure.
It just complicates things. So we want to set it up so we can have a clean, happy break. But you've talked about all those things. That's the benefit of talking about it up front. It was uncomfortable, but now we have everything sorted the way it needs to be.
Yeah, and then the expectations are set.
Right.
And now I feel relieved again.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, those things. I mean, it just seems like, now can any of these things be done without an attorney?
I would say not an operating agreement with buyout provisions.
Okay.
But an LLC, you can form an LLC. I, again, would just say like a married couple or a single person LLC. Yeah, you don't need any complicated operating agreements for that.
And because I feel like a lot of the hindrance that I probably would see, especially in the Black community, like, oh, well, there's fees associated with it, so it keeps getting put off and put off and put off. And it is a cost, of course, and it should be a cost. You talked about flat fees and things like that. Are there some other things that you can give cost on, as far as like having a will put together and things like that?
Yeah, just generally speaking. So we're doing this in
just
what is today? 2023.
Right,
So my cost in 2023.
Yeah, sure.
We charge an initial consultation fee. Costs you $250 to come sit with one of the attorneys.
Sure.
We flat fee if you were a single person and you needed a will and powers of attorney at $750. If you're a couple, it's $1,500. If you have some advanced trust or estate planning stuff, then it's $3,500.
Gotcha.
So that would get you in the ballpark.
Get you in the ballpark, and you know it is one of the more emotionally challenging decisions that people have to make. I think I'm probably more like you in that death is kind of scary, but it's like you don't have a choice in it. So a lot of times when I'm talking to people, and so for instance, I guess I'll just use our family. And unfortunately, my family has started to talk and have these conversations, but it is something like, hey, so I'm sorry, kind of jump around. Me and my brother and I were thinking, hey, well, maybe we can approach our parents about doing some investing on family land. And I just thought about it the other day. I was like, wait a minute. It's one thing for us to come in, let's say we build some rental property on family land. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But what happens after we leave?
Right.
Now this whole thing has become very tricky. And who's to say we may leave this earth very quickly, so all of that, becomes tricky. And would you prefer to have things done like the trust, having it talked about all up front, or do you think it's better to do the will and have, like things just, you're going to find out whenever I go? Like, what would you prefer? What would you advise? Is it different case by case, or what is it?
It's pretty much always better to talk about it all up front and just all the options. Yeah.
But all the options is probably
right. So you may not choose to do all of them at one time, right? And that's okay. You can always change or add to. So I don't want people to be scared by, well, gosh, it just seems like so much. I'm going to need all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, you can graduate into stuff. Sometimes people have a will and powers of attorney, and then 10 years later they come back and we're talking about an LLC for some investment property that they bought. And then maybe 10 years later they want to do a trust because they've decided they want to make things real easy for their kids.
Sure. With that, we've entered like a new era now. With COVID coming through and highlighting that need, to have things in place. Did the pandemic change things for you and your business? I know your business came to fruition kind of at the tail end of the pandemic. Even though we still have it around, they just had COVID a couple weeks ago. It was terrible.
No, sorry.
Just it didn't feel bad. It was just terrible, just because I thought we were over this. I thought we were past this. Did it change a lot for you and your business, and did it change the way people operate?
I mean, business model wise, I think we just tried to be a little more flexible. So, time is of the essence with estate planning in general. It's not always people coming in because they have had a diagnosis or something's happened that they, it's become a little more immediate. But we do try and treat it pretty timely. So, and COVID made that a little more serious for us, I would say. We try to be flexible and we try to be responsive so that, you're not, sometimes people have a bad taste with lawyers if you've done other things with lawyers. We try to make it as easy as possible and as not intimidating as possible. So if I can be flexible and wear jeans and have a casual conversation, I just want you to feel comfortable so we can get your stuff done and do it in a timely manner.
I mean, because in that regard, a lot of people think that, that estate planning is only like for wealthy people, so you kind of want to put on the air like, oh, I have, but it's not just for those with lots of wealth.
For everybody.
Do you sense kind of like a reservation from people, almost like feel like they don't have?
Oh, sure. People say that to me all the time. I don't have enough to worry about it.
Yeah.
Well, you do, because you have people that will have to step in and take care of you. If you are sick, they'll need to handle your stuff. They will need to handle your stuff when you die. So it's really a kindness to your agents, your beneficiaries, to your kids. Yes. It is not for you. It's for them.
Yeah. And to say, hey, I love this person, I care about them, is almost to
leave a hot mess.
Yeah. Please. And my brother and sister and I, we have a great relationship. And I really thought that my whole family, like as far as extended family, oh yeah, we wouldn't have any issue. And it was surprising to me how small of an item became an issue between family members, where we had to go back, somebody had to apologize.
Oh, sure.
And we had to reestablish almost like a new relationship of love because, hey, I expect to have this.
Yeah.
Of my.
Well, people have different biases walking into things. People have different seasons they're going through. Maybe I needed the money right that second. Yeah. Maybe I didn't think that, or I thought I was going to be able to replace that, or it didn't matter to somebody. I mean, you just never, even if they're family and even if they would never intentionally do you wrong, they still have life going on.
Mm-hmm. Can somebody come in to hire you to help even after so let's say they die intestate, can somebody bring you in at that moment as well?
So we do determinations of heirship, which is where the court says, here's the heirs, here's an administrator to administer the estate, kind of comparable to the executor. So we do those all the time. I do try to avoid, I'm not really sure this is where your question was going, but I do try to avoid contested matters. I just don't have the time for it.
Sure.
And don't prefer it. So I try and stay away from it where there will be fighting.
What kind of matters are contested?
If the administrator is put in place or the executor is put in place and then somebody else hires a lawyer and then fights what you're doing.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, okay. And you, so have you done it before? I know you said you try to avoid it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, things come up, right? So you don't always see it coming. Sometimes it's a surprise.
Yeah.
So yeah, sure. I mean, I have done them.
Do you, when you say that you've done it, do you like kind of find yourself in that position only because you've been helping so far, or like somebody come? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If I can see it coming, I'm just going to decline and I'm going to refer you to somebody.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. When people are, let's say, people are contesting, do you have, are there specific people in town? Like, is there a specific attorney?
Yeah, so you're looking for a litigation attorney at that point. Okay. So, right, everybody specializes. I have a specialization, right. And it's not litigation. I don't like to fight with you. So you need a lawyer that's going to fight, and that's a litigation attorney.
Do you have to do any like drafting of documents?
I do
and things
all
like that?
yes.
Okay, okay, so that's more of your expertise. Yes. I said, what expertise? I don't know what word just came out of my mouth. But so litigation lawyer, if you are having something that's contested. So even if I put an executor in place, that can be contested?
So that one's harder. So if you have a formally done attested will that you did in a lawyer's office, then that is really hard to contest when that gets probated, because the way to contest it is showing that you didn't have legal capacity at the time that you signed it, and that requires medical records.
Oh, wow.
That right. So that's really hard. But
that seems that seems like you're gonna have to be pretty cutthroat as a child or heir.
Yes. Now you can contest that it's not a valid will, and if you did not do it in a lawyer's office, you may have some success with that. So challenging a will that didn't have the two witnesses, that wasn't signed at the same time as the two witnesses. So there's some, just the legal validity required to have a correctly done will, that can be challenged a little more easily.
Interesting. And you said just a minute ago that you do some determination of heirship. Is that like having to seek out more heirs or things like? Because sometimes I'll hear about
it's still just establishing it.
Okay.
So as opposed to having just the disinterested witness affidavits, let's say that, I don't remember who my hypothetical was, let's say his 4 kids, one can't be found. Well, you can have the court determine that those 4 kids are his heirs, but appoint one of them to be the administrator. And then that person can get permission from the court to sell the property and handle the affairs of the estate. So it's not, I can't find this person or...
Sure.
Yeah.
And disinterested party just means just somebody saying, hey, I don't want to have anything to do with this.
Right. It would just be someone not in the line of descent, so that wouldn't inherit from that person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I took that to mean like, hey,
they can be interested, but
I don't care. I have a right to it, but I don't care.
No.
No. Okay.
No.
You can't. Is there a way, like, say somebody says, hey, I know that I have right to this, but I don't.
Yeah, you can disclaim.
You can disclaim. Okay.
Yep. You can disclaim or assign.
Are those things that you handle as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, like, family member of 4 wants to say, I want my share to go to my sister. You can do that.
Okay. Oh, you can assign it to a specific person. I guess that is the same thing as like your undivided interest, being able to sell those, or you can be
exactly. You're just doing it to family, and you're not getting any money.
The top of my head exploded, and I feel like the top of my head exploded. Like, oh yeah, that all actually makes perfect sense now that you explained it. And as far as you see, are things changing in estate planning at all? Like, or are you pretty much just things kind of stay the same? I mean, are there any laws or anything that people should be aware of that affect, or maybe any changes or anything that are coming that people should be?
Not with estate planning. There's some changes with guardianships, and that's, an incapacitated adult that needs a guardian put in place to handle stuff for him.
Gotcha.
There's been some changes since I've been practicing with that, but, nothing really estate planning wise that I would foresee. Estate taxes are changing and going down. The limit now, you can give at your death or during lifetime, you can give $12.9 million per individual. So we're all going to scoot right under that. Mm-hmm. But it'll sunset down to $5 million with a CPI adjustment of around $6 million in 2026. Okay. So unless something changes at the federal level, this will be the first time in history that our estate tax limit decreased.
Oh, wow.
Kind of interesting.
That is interesting. When you were saying something a minute ago, I don't know why it popped in my head. What about if somebody becomes a foster child, an adopted child, are they automatically given the same?
They are legally adopted, yes.
Legally adopted,
not foster, but legally adopted.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Which you can do as an adult, also.
You can adopt somebody
as an adult.
Really?
Yep. So if you did that, it's usually for estate planning purposes.
Okay. Just so that you get.
Or you just want to do it.
Wow, that's very interesting. That makes me think. So I was studying for a sermon that I was preparing. I actually got a chance to deliver a few weeks ago, and it had something to do with adoption. And I didn't know that Alexander, the Roman emperor, he brought in. Oh my gosh, what's his name? I forgot. The next emperor was actually adopted. He was a grown man. And he did that for the airship so that he could have somebody take over the throne that he trusted and he wanted to. So that basically, like, now I feel, okay, hey, I actually feel kind of kingly right now. This is my estate. I am not necessarily a king in the castle, but it feels like a king in the castle where I'm able to come in and make those decisions. And Kristen, I really appreciate your time. I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time, but are there any other things that you feel like people have maybe like misconceptions on when it comes to estate planning and things like that that you would like for people to have a better, clearer awareness of?
Yeah, I would love for people to realize how important it is. Only about 50% of adults have their stuff completed and in place, and it's going to impact every single one of us. Sure. So it's something you can change. It's something that can grow up with you as you change and go into different seasons of life. So I just want them to know how important it is.
Yeah, and I would like people to know a little more about you, because I think one of probably our closest interactions was you have shown reason. I didn't know you a whole lot before this past year maybe, but I've seen you like intentionally like wanting to give. Can you talk a little bit about why you are wanting to give so much? I mean, I introduced you to my parents when you held the free estate planning meeting there at the office, and then we were able to go with you through Journey of Generosity. What is it that's spurring you in your generosity?
That's what God put us here for, right? Yeah. So if God's blessed me with something, I'm just a steward of it for a period of time. And that's my time, that's my resources, that's my knowledge, that's my skill. So I just do the best that I can to share those things if God has given it to me. Yeah.
Well, I have seen you be extremely generous, even in your time coming here today, because you don't have to. I greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate the things that was exposure to me. As you talked just a minute, it's not just about your resources, but also about your time, about your skills and your and the acquired knowledge that you've had, that you be able to share those things. So I wanted to publicly say that I appreciate all that you're doing I do see your efforts. I see you and your family, because Richard was there as well. Richard seems more reserved, and I said I don't know him very well, but he seems more he seems more reserved. That's probably why he is so great with his hunting and thermal gear. I don't know if you want to drop a plug for him right now. For his,
sure. Yeah. He does all the marketing for Ultimate Night Vision. So he's got 1.5 million subscribers now on YouTube. Yeah. We just started ours at work, and I think I have 19 now. So I got a little room to grow.
I think I got you beat by like 2.
Working on it. Yeah. So
I got to figure out a way to be as entertaining as Hogs being.
Yeah, it's a hard one to beat.
Yeah, it is, because they're really exciting videos. Well, not exciting. They're really interesting videos.
Action-packed.
Yeah, they are actually. He put the music behind them and everything.
He puts a lot of effort into editing those videos.
Really?
Yes.
Does he get a chance to actually hunt as well?
Yeah, he hunts about once a week. He does all the video that you see, and he does all the editing. So
wow, interesting. Very interesting. Well, can you give the name of your firm again?
Yes, Ishihara and Parker Law Firm. We're on H.G. Mosley.
H.G. Mosley. And what's a good way to contact you?
Probably our website is longviewestateplan.com.
Longviewestateplan.com. Well, I greatly appreciate your time, Kristen. This has been very informative. I imagine we could have gone a lot deeper. I hope this is information that everybody can at least take action on. You have your will, you have your power of attorney, you can have a living trust. All those things are great for you to put in place now and love on your family in the future. So anything else you have, any events or anything else that you have coming up that you'd like to share?
Nope, okay. Don't think so.
When can we expect you to what you've already announced your
you can vote for me in May of 2024.
May of 2024. All right, well, we'll be ready.
Please and thank you.
You got my vote already.
Thank you, Mike.
So I appreciate it. I can, some things I can see and say, okay, like I said, if people were mentioning your name a long time ago, and I guess that speaks to your character, your integrity. So we really appreciate it, and I appreciate your time here today. And if y'all would mind, visit. You have 3? You have a personal page, and you have 2 businesses. You have the mayor, Kristen Ishihara from Mayor,
I do.
And also to the Ishihara and Parker law firm. You could go on Facebook, like those, show some love, please. If you received a lot of great information, if you'd like to contact her, the website longviewestateplanning.com is available for you to reach out to them. Also, if you wouldn't mind liking and sharing this video, there are a lot of people out there that need to know about planning for their future and planning their estate, so that there's no guesswork and hurt feelings or anything like that in the future. We can kind of snip all of that in the bud early on. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and watching. If you wouldn't mind subscribe, that would do us a great service. Y'all look forward to the next episode next week. It's going to be another awesome one. Thank you very much, and we'll see you then.